Okay. I think it's a good time for us to start.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You are welcome to day 2 of SP COVID-19 webinar series. And my name is Diran Falore, and I'm going to be speaking today with my colleague, Chiamaka Ibeh, and we're going to be talking about how businesses can adapt to the current state of affairs, working remotely, data privacy, and employment relations. It's we'll try and make it an interactive one within the confine of the minutes we have to spend on this topic. So we'll crave your indulgence that you stay back and listen. Then for those that have questions, please you can as well send in your questions through the chat platform down on the below of your screen. So so if I may proceed, I'm going to be talking about working remotely and employment relations, while my colleague will take care of the data privacy. When we say work remotely, we're all aware of the current situation we found ourselves, COVID-19, the fact that it's an unprecedented situation. Nobody saw it coming, and when ship pulls to shore, we all have to find a way around moving forward, and businesses must survive. And before now, quite a handful of businesses has adopted a remote workplace option, which requires some class of employees to work from home. For example, people in the category of pregnant women, handicapped employees, or people that are physically challenged are the kind of people or categories of employees that fall into every bucket of people. But with the situation now, everybody seems to be shifting to remote working because business must go on no matter what is going on in society. Starting businesses requires, you can't shut it down. Notwithstanding that the federal government has allowed some businesses to go on, but if you are within the service sector, you have to go, the businesses must go on. So for example, it is reported that the remote access has grown by 44% increase over the last 5 years. And this is just before the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world. And so we can, unfortunately, we don't have a statistic to measure how many businesses in Nigeria has adopted a remote workplace. Moving forward, we have, in Nigeria, for example, we have an Employment Compensation Act 2010, who has also defined what a workplace is. It says that a workplace will include premises or place where a person or needs to be or is required to be in the course of employment. This implies that the workplace is not just the confine of your office, but it also includes anywhere, any place you are that your employer has given you an assignment to execute. That means that every offices that are still operating remotely, or every employee that has one assignment or the other to do and is doing it from the convenience of his house, can be said to be working from a workplace. And that is statutorily backed up by the Employees Compensation Act. The issue before us is on how businesses can adapt in the situation at hand. And one of our proposals is that the first thing a business should do is to draw policies and checklists and guidelines for remote working. And one of the policies that we're suggesting is that you must have an eligibility policy. When we talk about eligibility, we should know that not every businesses can work remotely. Not every business can work remotely. For example, people in the manufacturing industries are one, apart from the fact that we have a government restriction on movement of people. If what you are manufacturing, for example, is a block molding industry, for example, or people that are probably producing asbestos, for example, people like that, they are precluded from working at the moment. So those kind of people, we can't say they should work remotely because they have to get to the factory, and the factory is only the place of where they can have such items and products produced. So eligibility here, so more or less what we're saying is that not every business organization can adopt a remote workplace option. And when you're drafting your policy, you have to consider people, you have to indicate people that are eligible to work remotely from the confines of their home. So if we may use the law practice as an example, for those that are much more into corporate commercial practice, most of the things we do hardly ends up in court. And the instructions you even get from your clients are things that you can do within the confines of your home. All you need is just your system, your internet, and so many other gadgets to work with. Moving on to the next policy, we talk about availability. We need to be careful here, because now when we ask people to work remotely, the question is from the angle of an employer, how do you monitor your employee? If it was a physical office setting that we usually do, there is either you have a physical register where people sign in and sign out. But in this case, everybody's working, or quite a number of people are working from home. How do you measure? How do you determine when the person is working or not? So the issue of availability comes in. How do you measure what is the clock in time or clock out time? For in some cases, you find offices that would insist that the employee from your house, you should resume at 9 on your system, then you shut down by 2 or 4 o'clock. So such policies has to be in place. Then we talk about measuring productivity. That is another key area, key issue that has to be deliberated or discussed when drafting your policy documents. These are the days whereby we talk about deliverables and physical presence. In some types of businesses, what the business needs is actually what you are delivering, your deliverables. Are you meeting up your targets? Are you delivering? Are you meeting up? Are you executing your task and assignment that has been given out to you? It's not just about having in your office. You could have people in the office and all they do is eye service. It's when they see the boss coming around that they quickly turn in and look through that system. So the issue is, is the world looking at deliverables of physical presence? And I must say that over the time, some offices have adopted a situation whereby people have flexible hours or flexible work time. You don't necessarily have to be in the four wall of the office to execute or deliver. What they're after is whatever you have a task, just deliver. For example, you have an opinion to write to a client. Whether or not you're in the office, there are times whereby you get mails in the middle of the night. You don't say because it's not within working hours, you can't reply or respond. So you just have to wake up and do it, or you do it before you get to the office the next day. So how much more when you now work in when you're working remotely from your house? That means that it's not like you're working 24/7, but you're expected to deliver as and when due. So, and when it comes back to measuring productivity policy, that is how you, as the employer or as the HR within the establishment, you're able to determine how you're able to measure productivity. There has to be a scale for the HR to measure productivity of every employee within the organization. Then responsiveness. I hope everybody can see my screen. Responsiveness. That has to do with what's your return time. If they give you a task to execute, what's your return time? Are you going to be coming up with excuses that, well, I'm distracted, I have my children at home, or I don't have light, I don't have electricity, and all that. So that policy has to indicate how soon or how fast an employee has to respond to any task or assignment that has been given onto him. And also, you have to also confirm the mode of communication, email, platforms, or any other platforms. Then we come to your policy documents must also clearly state the equipment that must be used within the short time that we all are, that we all seem to be working remotely from our house. And such equipment will also include the office has to provide such equipment to the employee if you want them to work from their homes or from their houses. For example, you have to provide the laptop or desktop to them. You have to provide the scanner, the printers. Then we can't say the employee has to provide electricity because it's presumed that everybody has electricity in their house. But you have to ensure that you have a backup plan. You have a backup power supply. Let's give it an instance. You are in a meeting. that is very, very crucial for your business. And you know, a meeting is going to last for about 30 to 1 hour. You don't want to come up with the excuse that a PHCN or AEDC struck and you don't have lights. You shouldn't be ahead of you, particularly when we all know that it's a competitive market out there. So that means that you should ensure that you have a backup plan for your power supply. If you need to get a generator, you do. If you need to get an inverter, you do the same. Then we talk about tech support. These are the days where you have lots of cyber security. You have lots of information system risks out there. You also have to be careful to ensure that you have an adequate and efficient tech support to the mode of communication you're going to be using within this period. You have to have a dedicated, you know, some organizations, they have a dedicated software which seems to protect every communication, every document that flies within the closed circuit that is being set up. So we recommend dedicated software. You have to have a reliable internet access. We all know that we don't have lots of options, but I'm sure if we do a scale of 1 to 3, we can tell the best ISP that are reliable in any, whether Lagos or FCT, Abuja. Then the staff also has to they have to be familiar, and they have to have this knowledge, technical know-how of platforms and apps. You don't want to be caught up. You don't want to be caught up, or people shouldn't be hearing that you don't know how to use Zoom, you don't know how to use Skype or WhatsApp video calls, or you don't have to know how to use Microsoft. So your policy should quickly educate your staff on how to use this internet access or platform. Then we talk about environment. We've had a couple of meetings. We even had a test drive where we had to test how we had to tell ourselves that if you're going to be hosting a meeting, or if you're going to be in a meeting, you dare not have distractions while at the meeting. It shouldn't be hard up, because if it was a physical meeting, your phones cannot be ringing and you're picking up your phone in the middle of a board meeting or in the middle of a meeting with a client. So that means that you must ensure that the policy will be drafted in the way that ensures that every employee has to ensure that they are in a quiet environment when they're having such meetings, that their rooms, the environment is well lit, that there are no distractions or disruptions. If you're a family man, you have to ensure your kids or whoever stays at home with you are far away from you, so that there are no background noise in the course of the meeting, because those things are distractions, and not everybody likes such a thing. And moving on to the last policy, we're talking of client confidentiality. Confidentiality. It's key. The fact that everybody works from home gives room for employees to be careless. If it was in the physical office, I'm sure files will not move around, documents will not fly around. But now that everybody was required to work through a mode of communication or a means of communication, you have to ensure that your employees are also careful. If possible, you lock every document that have been transferred or sent or shared between the employees. You lock it to the extent that it's not printable, it's not downloadable. Those are mediums in which you can ensure that your client's confidentiality are intact and protected. Moving on to employment labor relations. Please, let's not forget that we're still talking about what businesses need to do in this time, and in this time of COVID-19. Talking about employment and labor relations, it's no brainer that COVID-19 is affecting a lot of employment contracts. And in Nigeria, for example, labor relations are governed by labor legislations and employment contracts. And these employment contracts are actually document or agreement and contains the terms between the employee and the employer. It contains a lot of things. I'm sure everybody's familiar with what an employment contract contains. So it's the responsibility of the employer to assign the work or task to the employee, and also to provide a workstation. So it's not enough that you have somebody on your payroll. It's the responsibility of the employer to also provide the work to do, the task, the assignment, to also assign the task and work for the employer, and also to provide the workstation. So if we recall, I mentioned earlier the definition of a workstation. So that means that of a workplace rather. That means that the fact that the physical offices are closed does not mean that an employee cannot give you a task or cannot assign a task to you to execute. That meaning that if you're at home, your employer has a right to send you work to do because you are still under his employment, except if things change. So the most dominant effect of this COVID-19 is actually the change of workplace right now. I know a lot of people have asked series of questions. I'm going to get there soon. So what are these? So it's enough of us talking about the advantages or the benefit of this workplace. Can we look at, I know a lot of you have probably penciled down certain challenges that you think we should have. So in our own case, we decided to come up with some, for example, we talk about technology apathy and illiteracy. That is very dominant in Nigeria. Not everybody, whether young or old, can actually operate most of the systems of software that are out there in the public. So it's onus lies on the hands of HR or of the employer to ensure that his staff are up to date with technology. They know how to operate these things. It's not enough to have those apps on your phone or your laptop. You must know how to operate it. Then we also have the information system risks and cybersecurity. My colleague is going to talk more on this because this also has to do with data protection. Then poor internet it's common to everyone, I'm sure. Electricity, yes, there's no 24 hours electricity right now in Nigeria. Then of course the high cost of data. Everybody seems to, even the employers, he can, like, I remember some few days ago, people were clamoring on Twitter of asking if the telecoms can reduce their cost of data. That reminds me, before I move to my last slide, I must say that when we talk about working remotely, let's not just focus on the environment itself, but let's look also at the operations of the business. There are some businesses that, yes, they are unable to work remotely, but the question is, what can they do in this time and chance? So, for example, if you have a catering service, for example, you could set up a system, a customer support system, for example, that will attend to your customers. And with that, you can direct whatever order that is placed here to whoever is operating. And before you know it, you've synchronized both partners. So what I'm saying is that the focus here is not just about the environment or the workplace station, but there are some businesses that can internally, modify themselves to operate in this time. Before today, we had some of our friends out there that sent in some questions, and I would like us to address this question now before I move on to my colleague. The first question was asked by Onomiwu Adaora, and she's asking, what are the impacts of COVID-19 on employment contract, and how is it addressed? Impact of COVID-19 on employment contract. In most, if not all, employment contract, you hardly have a clause that envisage that will have situation that is at hand right now. It's not like your normal contract that will always include a clause that envisage a force majeure, or that envisage a situation whereby it will be impossible, impracticable for parties to perform their obligations. So in employment contract, you hardly have such clauses. But thankfully, there's a principle of law which is called the doctrine of frustrations that states that provides situations like this that we have at hand in Nigeria, particularly when parties in an agreement are unable to perform their responsibility or their obligation in the contract. So in the case of, to answer your question, what are the impact of COVID-19 on employment contract? I would say that to a large extent, there's frustration on most employment obligations on both parts of the employer and the employee. So the question is, what happens? Some may say that I think it's the best time for the employee to probably close the shop or to terminate the employment. But I would advise that, or we will advise that, that is not the best answer for such. It's a contract. Both parties went into the contract So an employer cannot unilaterally terminate or waive or vitiate certain terms in contract. It has to be a consensus of both parties. So if, for example, an employer who is affected by this COVID-19, the best they can do is to probably have a conversation with the employer and say, look, my staff, we are unable to carry on business because of this issue. There are things and measures we can introduce. Okay, probably we should cut salaries, or you guys, that is for businesses that cannot work remotely. But for the ones that can work remotely, after all, the staffs are delivering, they are meeting up their target and deliverables. So I see no reason why you should consider terminating or cutting salaries. So for those that are really affected, that are unable to work remotely, one of the suggestions would be to talk. You need to dialogue. There has to be a consultative effort on the part of the employer with the employee, trying to talk to them to make them understand that, look, I'm unable to talk, we're unable to perform, or the business is unable to grow. So these should happen. Moving on to the next question, how do we successfully work remotely as employees in the pandemic era? I think I've addressed it in my second slide as to what the kind of policy document an establishment can develop. And I've also identified certain policies that you can put in place that will try and protect both, not just the business, but also the employees. The third question here was asked by Rosemond Phil Otegilawa, and she's asking, are employees follow-up policies adaptable this period? Follow-up policies are actually not applicable in Nigeria. There's actually no legal position on this in Nigeria. For those follow-up policies are actually, it's like a stop of an employment contract. You are putting it in abeyance on hold for a certain time because of what is happening. So for example, ever since the government said restricted movement, and the employer told his employees to not come, more or less put the employment on hold or pegged it down that, oh, for as long as the government enforces the lockdown, which is happening right now. So I would say that it's not applicable in Nigeria, but I would advise that because it's a contractual relationship. So the fact that we don't have a legal backing does not mean that you can incorporate that in the contract. So if it's already in your contract, you can enforce it. And enforcing it means that you can't, even enforcing it, it still comes back to a consultative effort between both parties. The employee must be able to meet with the employer. The employer must be able to meet with the employee, and they must be able to talk about this, and not that there will be a unilateral move by the employer in terminating their employment. And the second to last question I have here is asking, was posted by Boma Praise George. He or she is asking, I would like to know what other legal implications, apart from frustration of contracts that have arisen due to COVID-19 in respect of contractual obligations. What are the liabilities of an employee in relation to an employee? Let me just take it one by one. I would like to know what other legal implications, apart from frustration of contracts that have arisen due to COVID-19. There will be a lot of, there are quite other legal implications that, apart from frustration. For example, you have defaults on your loans, which could, if you don't send a notice to your financials on time or to your bankers, it could be something else. So the fact that don't forget that in a situation where you don't have force majeure clause in your contract, you can't unilaterally or solely impose frustration of contract. You need to communicate with the other party who's affected. You need to also communicate with the other party. So in this case, what other legal implications, your default on loans, your inability to meet your obligations to other parties will also come into place. Then what are the liabilities of an employer in relation to the employee who contract the virus because such employees are mandated to come to work in person? This is a relationship to employee who work in manufacturing, care, blah, blah, blah. So an example, very good example, we have our health professionals who are working assiduously to control and curtail the spread of COVID-19. And these people have families as well, and they leave their houses every day to work in there. So let's just assume they contracted a disease because of this sacrifice they're doing for our great nation. There's an employee, so the employer will be liable. Yes, will be liable. And if you ask, because it is whatever was contracted was in the course of the employment of the employer. So, and whatever happens to them, happen. And which even brings me to, okay, the last question, which is, who's liable for injury sustained at home? This is a question of fact, in the sense that if the injury that was sustained happened in the course of your employment, that means that if, for example, your policy says that you are meant to resume to your table or to your laptop at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're meant to clock out by 4 p.m. If an injury happened within that period, yeah, some will say it's arguable, but by the time we lay all the cards on the table, it's almost the industrial court, we most likely side with the employer, with the employee, because that injury was sustained within that working hours. So let's assume that it happened in the midnight, for example, which is totally out of the employment, the work hours. That brings the question of facts, and cards has to be laid on the table. I'm trying not to give a one answer to this, because we need to structure this in the context of whatever has happened. But it's either here or there. The injury can be, the employer can be liable or vicariously liable for the injury sustained by the employee, or otherwise, depending on the facts on the table. At this point, I will move on to my dear colleague, Chiamaka, to talk about data protection. Thank you all.
Thank you, Diran. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I hope we're doing well. I want to share my slides with you. Please hold on a bit. Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Chiamaka Ibeh, and I'll be taking you today on data privacy in the COVID era. So I hope you can see my screen. With COVID-19 came this boom on the internet. The number of people online practically doubled overnight because of the lockdown. Because physical interaction has been limited, people had to resort to online social media interactions, having conversations online, signing up to Facebook, Instagram. Basically, the whole world just like moved from the ground to up there in the cloud. So everybody's having their conversations in the cloud. Everybody's working on the cloud. Everybody's having parties in the cloud. Everybody's online now, basically. So on the screen, I have stats that show how the population of Facebook users in America alone increased by 5 million persons from February 2020 to March 2020. And we're talking about just in the United States of America. We can see on my screen, there's the statistics for Facebook and the statistics for Instagram. So you can imagine, this is just the United States of America. You can imagine what's happening in other countries in the world. So there's a lot of data that's been exchanged day by day. People are having meetings, virtual meetings. People are working virtually. People are talking to their loved ones. People are participating in challenges to just pass the time. The Bob Daddy challenge, all the challenges, the Don't Rush challenge, whatever you may call it. Everybody is doing something online. There's a lot of data that's been exchanged. People are signing up, downloading apps, signing up, creating accounts on different websites, on different apps. So it's a lot of data flying all around. So how can you protect yourself amidst all of this? Because when you exchange such data, you expose yourself to a lot of risks. Now, what is data? The data that we're referring to here, I would call it PI. PI stands for personally identifiable information. This is information that identifies you uniquely, identifies you as a person, as you. For example, Chiamaka, my bank verification number identifies me uniquely. The number on my international passport, on my national ID card, my email address, my phone number, those are pieces of data that identify me uniquely that is not shared by anyone else other than me. So that is the data I need to protect. Data that shows people that this is who I am. This is who Chiamaka Ibeh is. This is who you are. That can be used either positively or negatively by people out there. Now, what is data privacy? Data privacy refers to authorized processing of this data. If I go to any app, if I go to any website and I have to fill in my data, my name, my email address, fill in some details, I'm giving that person the authority to process my data for certain purposes that have already been made known to me. Take, for example, when you're signing up to or subscribing to a newsletter and you have to put in your name, you have to put in your email address and some other details about yourself, it is for the purpose of just getting news from that particular website. If that person then goes ahead to sell your data to to some other company that wants to start promoting ads on that particular website, and they say, "Oh, okay, as a unique selling point, we have about 10 million subscribers. We can give you their details, so you can start sending them emails, prompting them to subscribe to your services, or prompting them to pay for whatever it is you're offering." That is a breach of my data privacy, because I only authorize that particular site or that particular person to use my data just for the purpose of sending me newsletters, because I want to be informed. I want to know what you're sharing on your website. I don't need you to now give it to someone else to sell me their services. It's rude and it's unauthorized. It's something that the other person can be sued. In fact, the owner of the website is something the owner of the website can be sued for. You can report to the authorities and then the person can get into a lot of trouble. Now, what are your data privacy rights? You have a right to be forgotten. Now, this right to be forgotten refers to a right to have your data erased. Now, if I'm uncomfortable with that website, with my details being on that website, I have the right to reach out to the owner of the website to say, I no longer want to receive your newsletters. I want to hit unsubscribe, erase my data. I don't want to get any news about your services. I don't want to get any news about your offerings. Bye-bye. That is why most newsletters at the bottom tell you that, okay, do you wish to stop receiving these emails? You can unsubscribe. That is what the GDPR and the ND, for Nigeria, we have the Nigerian Data Protection Regulations. It's modeled after the GDPR, so it gives you those rights. So that is why those websites have now consciously included that right to be forgotten by giving you the option to unsubscribe when you no longer wish to receive any notification from that particular service provider. Now you have the right to restrict data processing. The example I cited about the host of a website sharing my data to people who want to use the information for ads to sell or promote their services. You can tell them, no, I only want to receive your newsletters. I don't want you to send my data to people to send me ads, to send me prompts about their offerings. You can say no. You can restrict the processing of your data in that regard. You have a right to rectify. If, for example, you fill the form and you put in your international passport number, you can choose to say, oh, I no longer want my international passport number there. I want to put my permanent voter's card number. You have a right to change the data that you have supplied, as long as you're not going to tell a lie or provide false information, but you can rectify the data that you have already supplied to any person online. You have a right to be informed of the uses to which your data will be put. If your data is going to be used just for newsletters, you have a right to be told that. If your data is going to be used for marketing purposes, you have a right to be told that. If your data is going to be used for polls or to be used to create insights for a particular product or for a particular industry, you have a right to be informed. And you have a right to object. You have a right to say no to someone using your data for a particular purpose. So these are rights that you have. So whenever you're exchanging data, whenever you're filling any online form, whenever you're doing anything online, always know that you have these rights. As a Nigerian, the NDPR protects you. And when the person, if anybody infringes on your rights in like other jurisdictions, you have a right to appeal to the regulatory bodies in those jurisdictions and to report those people who are messing with your data, essentially. Now, data privacy breach reasons. Why will people want to breach your data privacy? Well, data is the new oil. Data has the power to do and undo. Take, for example, a payment platform, a payments processing platform that has details of what you pay for. That's whenever you go online, whenever you go grocery shopping, whenever you buy from clothes stores, they know your online payment behavior. They know what you spend on. They know if you're spendthrifty. They know what your guilty passions are. They know what you spend your money on. They can supply this data to persons within an industry to tell them, this is what we know. We know that at this point in time, during this COVID-19 era, a lot of people are doing grocery shopping. These are the insights that show that from February to March, the number of people who have been making payments online for these particular services has tripled by so and so number. So you can imagine the amount of power that data, that insight from such a credible source has given to another party. So data is so important. It's precious. You have to guard it. You have to guard it so that people don't misuse it. People can use this data to steal your identity. Your pie, as I mentioned earlier, can be used by another person. They take your photograph, they take your details about your geographical information, they take details about your social security number, your bank verification number, and they can pretend to be you. We know about 419, we know about internet fraud, we know about a lot of things that are going wrong on the internet. So you do not expose yourself to such risk by giving somebody your personal information so that they can then give it to somebody else who will pretend to be you and then start doing transactions that you never, ever did. You do not want that. Data resale. The example I mentioned about the payment platform, you can imagine how much that particular platform will charge for those insights. You can imagine. I once was on a WhatsApp group platform and somebody sent a message and was like, does anybody here have a database of phone numbers so I can send text messages to? And there'll be people who will respond. They would say, okay, yes, we have it. Before you know it, you start receiving a message from some Bitcoin company or for some betting company. And you're like, I never did business with this person. I don't know why they have my phone number. I don't know why they're sending me these messages. Or they send the messages to people who do elections. I don't know if anybody has ever experienced that. Take, for example, you're a member of an association, and all of a sudden, out of the blues, when it's time for elections, you see people calling you from nowhere, people sending you text messages, unsolicited text messages. Somebody has given your data to that person for a fee. For a fee. They're making money off you. So try your best to protect your data, because if that data gets into the wrong hands, it can do you a lot of bad, I tell you. Now, political leverage. We know what happened in the United States at the last elections. We know what data was used for. One party got an unfair advantage over the other party because of data, just because of data. And some other big parties got into trouble. But you can imagine what's going to happen when it gets into the hands, your data gets into the hands of somebody you cannot track, somebody whose details you cannot trace, somebody who has nothing to lose. They're just going to use your data, make money off you, sell it to big politicians, get insights, sell it to political parties, and they cash out on you, on your data. That is wrong. That's not what I would want, and I'm sure that's not what you would want. Notable occurrences. Now, with COVID-19 came the whole, the need to hang out virtually. Okay, let's download fun apps. And then we all know about this app that everybody started raving about. And in such a little time, it went viral that this particular app was interfering with other applications on your phone. This particular app could actually go to your Netflix account, and then disrupt things. And then it went viral. It was on Twitter. It was everywhere. People had to send messages to everybody, delete your account, delete your profile on this particular app. Do you know why it is so important? Netflix has your payment details. Netflix subscriptions are automatic. So if any app breaks into your Netflix account, that is danger, because the person can get access to these payment details, your payment card details, and you don't want a situation whereby you'll be in your house working from home on your laptop and you start getting debit alerts from only God knows where. Nobody wants that. You can remember when there was this particular app that could tell you, oh, you look like this, it's so and so in so and so amount of years. It will show you, okay, tell you you're going to look like Brad Pitt, or this is who you look like, this is who you look like. And then it went viral again that this particular software is not great. It has the potential to breach your data privacy. It has the potential to get data that you didn't want it to get in the first place. These people, when you're putting in your details, your name, your email address, your age, a lot about you on these platforms, your data can be used for things you cannot imagine. Things you never ever fathomed your data could be used for. So we have to be careful when we're downloading these apps. Yes, we know that we're bored at home or we just need a little off time, but please be careful. Now, we also know that whenever you download apps and then you see that these apps are asking you for access, allow access to camera, allow access to audio, allow access to this, allow access to that. Be careful. Be careful what you allow. Some apps don't have any business with your contacts. Some apps do not have any business with your camera. They don't have any business with your video. So be careful. You have a right to allow, to deny. Even some apps that ask for access to your geographical location, there are options like, okay, allow while the app is in use, allow forever, or deny. So know what you're allowing. Know what access you're giving these particular apps to. And then cookies as well. Cookies record your information, your online behavior. They keep minute data pieces. That's why when you go onto Jumia and then you order for chicken, and then the next time you're online, you're just trying to do research, you start seeing bags of rice for sale. You start seeing a pot for sale. Cookies give insights that show your online behavior, show what you have bought in the past and what you likely need to buy. So you have to be careful about what you're accepting. Do not just accept for the fun of it. Know the implications. Know the implications of accepting, declining, and all of that. Now, because of the enormous exchange of data, we know what's happened with Zoom. Zoom has gone from an obscure platform to the wave of the moment. I mean, we're using Zoom at this time. Many companies have had to resort to this online meeting platform, online webinar platform, to be able to communicate virtually from home. So Zoom, knowing the potential, knowing the risks that come with a lot of people coming onto their platform, they introduced certain enhanced security measures. For example, the waiting room. I know many of you, before you got access into this meeting, there was a waiting room and you had to wait there. That waiting room gives you the chance to check who's coming into your meeting at every point in time, so that you don't have people who just come into the meeting and they start selling Bitcoins to you, or they start taking details of people who are online and stuff. So there are a lot of changes to their platform to ensure that users on their platform would be safe, at least to a reasonable extent. Now, steps to mitigate data privacy breach risks. This is very important. I'd like for you to pay really, really good attention. Software due diligence. We had due diligence, a big word, fancy word, yeah, lawyers use it, but then it's basically doing research in simple terms. Before you download this app, read reviews. When you're on the Play Store, when you're on the App Store, read reviews. What are people saying about those apps? When you try to download those apps, what's the privacy policy saying? What are they going to do with your data? It's long, it might be tiny, it might be boring, but you have to painstakingly do this. And you can do this now because you have more time on your hands, because like you're at home. But then you have to do it. You have to do your due diligence before you download that app and give access to your contacts, give access to your geographical location, your audio, your video, give access to you, basically. Then disable cookies. If you were in the supermarket, you went to pick chicken from the fridge, and then somebody that's selling tomatoes just comes and starts following you all about saying, oh, I saw you buy chicken, you definitely need my tomatoes. After a while, you tell the person, please, I want to focus on what I'm doing. I do not want you to continue interfering with my shopping experience. Cookies interfere with your online experience. So try your best. If you do not want it, if you're not bothered about it, you can choose to leave the cookies, but then disable those cookies so that the amount of data that the internet keeps of you would be reduced to the barest minimum. So you can go to your browser settings and then disable cookies there. Or whenever you go to those websites, do not accept those cookies. If the website mandates that you accept those cookies before you continue surfing their sites for information, go somewhere else. Go somewhere else. If you're not comfortable, if you're not comfortable with their terms and conditions, please go somewhere else to get the information that you need, because they're not acting in your best interest. They should give you the option to choose yes or no, not yes or yes. Phishing links, be careful. People are sending lots of information on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on your emails. Be careful about the links you click on. Some of these links have the ability to automatically install malware and spyware on your computers. They can destroy your servers, they can get information about you, they can store your data. You do not want your data to get into the wrong hands. Now, restrict app access to your location, your camera, audio, and your video. I've spoken about this already. Save password feature. You don't just save your passwords on just any apps. You don't just say, okay, because this person asked me to put a password that has uppercase, lowercase, symbol, space, something, something. So you end up doing juggernauts, 1, 2, 3, hash, minus, plus, and all of that. You can't remember those passwords. If you can write those passwords down, do so, but then be careful. If it says remember, if you click on remember password or something, be careful. Do not do that on a public computer. If you can jot it down in a book or somewhere, do that, but then be careful. Be careful where you save your passwords, be very careful. Pop-ups on your phone to update or install strange applications and read the information on your screen. Sometimes you're scrolling through your phone and then an information just pops up, tells you to upgrade a certain app that you never installed. You just see some funny codes and it tells you to accept, to update, to install. Please do not read what's on your screen. Read the information on your screen. Know what you're opening yourself to. Know what you're up against. Now, Big Brother is always watching. How much do you want him to see or hear? The internet has no control. You expose yourself to a lot of risks when you're online. What can you do to actually protect yourself, at least reasonably, to a reasonable extent? There are responsible software companies who try their best, like the Zoom example I mentioned. But then what can you do by yourself? Because the saying goes, heaven helps those who help themselves. So what can you do? If the software companies are doing their part, you have to do your part as well. So implement the recommendations that I mentioned in the previous slide and limit how much you want Big Brother to see or to hear. Thank you for listening. So questions? Hello, can everyone hear me?
Chiamaka.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So I
We have a couple of questions here.
Okay, I'm trying to go through the questions.
Okay, there's a question from Happiness. She's asking, does working remotely from home mean that the employee shall be the one to bear the financial burden of data subscription and fuel use in discharge of official obligations? And should a provision be made to compensate for all expenses incurred while working from home, which ordinarily shouldn't be incurred by the employee if she is working at the office? Good question, which I'm sure quite a number of people are also have that challenge. We would say that it's the duty, the responsibility of the employer to provide what you need to work from home. Because if it wasn't for COVID-19, everybody would be working from the office, and it would be the responsibility of the employer to provide the electricity, the data in the office, and every other thing that required for you to perform your duty. So, and yes, I would say it's the duty of the employer. Yes, some may argue and say that after all, you're not commuting to the office every day. So the cost of you coming to the office should actually be used to subsidize for your data subscription. But it all depends on how you're able to address your employer. That look, could you help us out? Could you give us some palliative measures or palliative allowances and all that? But primarily, it's the responsibility of the employer. There's a second question from Mika. He or she is asking, since it is the responsibility of the employer to provide a workplace, and yet it's the responsibility of the employee to work on any job given to him by his employer. If the employee has no job place, especially in this COVID-19 period, being locked down in a place not stable to work, would the employee be wrong not to work since it is the responsibility of his employer to provide a workplace? I would say that you have a responsibility to report to the employer and explain the reason why you're unable to perform your duties. Yeah, if your employer assigns a tax to you, you need to explain to them the reason why you're unable to do it. You can't just keep quiet and assume the person can see or knows your circumstance. I'm looking for the next question. Yes, there's a question from Anonymous. For an estate where residents want to use the pool, is the estate liable? Fantastic question. Chiamaka, you want to answer that, or I should go ahead?
Well, you should tell them no, because the essence of the lockdown is to limit people coming together, because the virus spreads from person to person by contact. Fluids from the other person's body comes in contact with another person. So anything that is going to warrant people coming together in clusters should be discouraged. So at this point in time, access to common areas should be restricted. Because it's for their own good. The more people have access to one another, the higher the risks of the virus spreading. And we do not want that. I mean, we do not want to stay home for longer than now. I want to go back to work. I want to go out. So no, please try to, but the thing is, explain to the residents, make them see reasons why. It's better. Clear communication always helps. So they know it's not for your own good, it's for their own good, even if they paid for it. You can't go to gyms. You don't have access to gyms anymore, even if you have a subscription running. So,
And if they refuse to listen, I guess the estate will be absolved of any liability. So there's a question here from Antoro. Current status of right to be forgotten. The EU court recently rejected the absolute right to be forgotten. Seek guidance on this. I'm thinking of situations where individuals wanted websites deletes. I'm trying to understand. Chiamaka, you want to help with this? Current status of rights.
The question says the right to be forgotten. The EU court recently rejected the absolute right to be forgotten, seeking guidance on this. I'm thinking of situations where individuals wanted websites to delete articles or embarrassing posts. Well, the circumstances have to be analyzed. An embarrassing post, like take for example, there's certain, let's say a picture. You can sue a website for putting up if that picture, take for example, was the picture was it public? Was that information gotten publicly? Is this something that's not personal to you? Is this something, when you say that somebody has a right to keep something confidential, somebody should keep something confidential, there are certain exceptions to it. That particular information that you want the person to keep confidential, how was it gotten? Is this something that's already in the public arena? Is this something that's not private? We're talking data private. Is this something that's not private at all? So it's circumstantial. Those articles, those embarrassing posts, for example, of celebrities, you hear instances of celebrities saying, put down my video, and they pay such websites for doing that, because they know that even if they take the person to court, like essentially, the person would say, okay, this particular information was public. It's not something that's like personal, very private or very personal. It's something that's in the public domain, Why should you tell me to do this? You have something that's cut across different blogs, different gossip blogs and all of that. So it's circumstantial. If it's something that discloses, take for example, account statements or serious bank details or the social security number of celebrities' child, something that uniquely identifies you, then you know that there's a problem there. So you have to draw that line. Public domain, is it confidential? Is it something that warrants our protection? Is this something that uniquely identifies you? There's a lot that goes into it. So if you see that case, that if you look at that court case, look at the details of that particular case you're referring to, then you'll be able to see the fine line between what the law intends, what the GDPR, what the NDPR intends or implies by the right to be forgotten, and having something you don't want to be in the public, having to not be embarrassed publicly. There's a difference. So you have to understand the circumstances, the difference in the circumstances that apply. I hope that answers your question. We can talk more. You can send me an email. We can talk about the case, and then we would have a tete-a-tete on the subject, if that's fine. My email, you can find my email on our website. My email was on the presentation, so we can talk more.
Next question from Ajoke, and she's in Nigeria, most firms and businesses equate productivity to actually coming to work every day and being seen. Do you think Nigerian firms will now be more inclined to adopt a work from home culture even after the COVID-19, or will it be back to business as usual? Fantastic question. It's hard to read the mind of every employer, but I would say that even before this COVID-19 time, some organizations in Nigeria has actually introduced flexible hours for their employees to work. I know a couple of law firms that have done the same, that you don't actually have to be in the forwards of the office to operate. And now that it's now apparent that routine work or activities is doable from the convenience of the employee, I'm sure after post-COVID-19, some firms or some organizations will consider and probably be flexible with, particularly for those in Lagos, that when you consider the hours you spend in traffic, the hours both in the morning and the evening, I'm sure some employers will be flexible as to working hours, or the insisting on people to come to the office to operate as far as you can send in your deliverables or your tax. I believe that answers your question, Ajoke. Then there's a question from Happiness. Please, does downloading apps which continues a phrase like I believe she meant contains a phrase like contain ads, means the downloader has waived or has a right for the breach of data in the event that the downloader starts getting annoying ads from website that the person never subscribed to? This happens to almost everybody. Chiamaka, you want to jump in on this?
So you've been warned. That's what they're telling you. You've been warned. If you're going to download this app, you're accepting to look at these ads, because if you notice, they will tell you that if you don't want these ads popping up on your screen, you have to pay for certain additional features. So it's a caveat for you to enjoy our free service. Something has to give, and they've been kind enough to actually notify you before downloading. So you've been warned. So they didn't do anything wrong.
So more or less, consent has been given.
You've been warned. Been given, yeah.
There's a question from Ibrahim Wali. What's the legality of an employer sharing employees' health status unconsented to the third parties, e.g. the NCDC, out of a necessary measure to combat COVID-19? Good question. Yes, this is more or less on a balance of scale, the privacy right of the employee and also the public health right. And depends on the scenario and the issues for us. In most cases, the public health law will prevail, because the idea or the intention is to combat or curtail the spread of COVID-19. If an employee happens to have contracted the disease or the virus, and the employer now discloses that to the regulatory agencies or NDC or the Ministry of Health, I would say that the public health is arguable though, but at this point, because we need to place the general will of the people over an individual. So public health rights will possibly prevail. Chiamaka, there's a question from Onyi. Do cookies on website have anything to do with privacy? I believe you referenced this in your presentation, but in case you want to throw more light on this.
Well, cookies record tiny bits of information about you. They record information about your online behavior, what you're buying, what you research on, what you, like for example, when you go to Google and you check for certain articles, you find content being pushed your way that relates to that particular thing you had researched about yesterday. So a cookie has stored that information about you, that you're interested in this particular subject. But then Google goes ahead to now tell you that if you no longer want to see information of this kind, you can tell them no. And they'll ask you why. Why do you want to stop seeing this ad? And you tell them, oh, okay, I just don't like it. And they'll tell you, okay, sorry about that. This information will not come, we won't bring this information across your way anymore. So it does have to, because they're keeping data about you, they're keeping information about your online behavior that can be given to somebody else, that can be given for ad purposes to a company to drive insights about a particular product. So it's information about you, so it's your data. It identifies you as a person, that identifies what you want, it identifies what you're searching for online. So you have to limit what you say and what you give and how much you give about you online, because you don't know who's watching. Big Brother is always watching. How much do you want him to see or hear?
Yeah, you're right. Big Brother is watching. Another question from Happiness. Happiness, please keep it coming. We enjoy your question. How can one even know the particular website that is the company that really caused the breach in the privacy of data to warrant enforcing the rights in civil courts? How can you trace it? How do you audit it? Please, Chiamaka. You need to unmute your mic.
He who asserts must prove. You would only know your data has been infringed on when you see, let's check, for example, somebody says that you bought something on their website with a particular card when it wasn't you. So that's when you can now trace. But then they say nothing has happened if nothing has happened. So you really can't say, But then when something actually happens, you can now take it up by reporting to you can communicate with the particular host of the website, tell them to put that information down, or tell them that you do not want your data to be used for this, so tell them to erase your data. If they insist and they still continue doing with their wrong, you can go ahead to report to the regulatory authorities of that particular country if the person is not within your own, because usually online, I mean, it's a global village. You have different people from different countries, Austria, Iceland, anywhere, everywhere. So you can report that particular host. Usually, sometimes it's a dead end, but you can at least fight as much as you can.
And you can also hire an investigator, right?
Can't do that too. Yeah.
A question from Dolakoi Bukun. Someone should add NCDC for all the unsolicited but useful messages sent to us. Probably had network providers that release their info. I think this is a comment, not really a question. Do subsidiaries go ahead, Chiamaka.
Okay, well, like for this NCDC thing, the government is trying to get word across as much as they can. There's something called the overriding public interest. But then you can argue that, yes, NCDC, you shouldn't be sending me these unsolicited messages. Yes, that is true. You have a right. But then the government, on the other hand, will say, we're just trying to help our citizens. And besides, the government even has your data, whether you like it or not. It's not just the network providers. When you've registered you have your national ID card, you've registered on certain government websites, your permanent voters card. So the government actually has your data. So it's not necessarily from the network providers, not necessarily. And if at all it is, the network providers can say overriding public interest, we're trying to help you and all of that. But more often than not, I'm sure it wasn't from the network providers. I'm sure about it. Almost sure, not totally sure.
Thank you, Chiamaka. I wish we could entertain all the questions on this platform, but we've already spent about an hour on this platform, and we'd like to call it a day at this point for us to resume tomorrow. I will move over to the host. Ibeh, please, could you take it over from here?
I said thank you everyone for coming. Can you hear me, just to be sure? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so thank you for coming. Thank you for joining in today. If you look through the chat, you see that all comments, all questions can be sent to our email address, and we forward it to speakers who will deal with it. Please join us same time, same place, tomorrow at 11 a.m. Thank you very much. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.